of him in the Ukulele Hall of Fame Museum, which is not in Hawaii. And that's why I asked about people from the East Coast. Because the Ukulele Hall of Fame Museum is on the East Coast. When my father was inducted, he's the seventh person inducted, not as a musician, but as a manufacturer of instruments. It was, the Hall of Fame Museum was in Providence, Rhode Island. We talk about that a little later. But first of all, ukulele making is divided into basically three eras. The first era was when Hawaii was a kingdom. We had kings and queens ruling us, like you have in Japan, the emperor, empress, right? 1879, the second ship from Portugal arrived, and this man was on it. His name is Manuel Nunes. And he and two other craftsmen on that ship, Augusto Diaz Juan de San, they made musical instruments on the side, but everybody coming to Hawaii during the kingdom came to work in the sugarcane field, which is the biggest industry, the only industry we had, so to speak. They had a 3-year contract to work in the sugarcane field. But in their spare time, these men made musical instruments. And so they're the ones that came to teach us. They're the only ones that came to teach us how to make instruments. Well, they didn't really. He designed what is known as the Hawaiian ukulele about 10 years after he arrived. He took the different instruments that they had and put it together to come up with a simple instrument to use by the Hawaiians. Now, this was an easy instrument to make. It was easy to carry. You didn't need a case. Took it under your arm, go down to the beach, take it out and play, go to the mountains, go to parties and play. The guitar was too cumbersome. You had to have a case to carry it. Hawaiians weren't interested in something extra, first of all. So they weren't interested in a case. But the thing about it is, this ukulele was made 1900, the turn of the century. Now, it's a very important date because all instruments were made this way to 1930, the end of the first era. So it goes from 1879, when the Portuguese came, to the big depression in America in 1930. That's the first era. All instruments made with this, made exactly this way, because this was a duplicate of the first ukulele made in Hawaii. Now, 1900 was the first full year we became part of the United States. So this instrument was not known in the United States till we became part of the United States, and the musicians from Hawaii brought this instrument to America, and these people saw it. Now, we go back. At that time, my father was a teenager, but he was in the upper teens. He and 7 friends wanted to imitate what the Portuguese were doing turn of the century. But they didn't know what woods to use to get the sound. How thick should the wood be? They knew how to make drums, which is easy. You got coconut trees, you cut it, dig it out, make drums. But to make a musical instrument took finesse. Now, when all the people came from no matter where, Far East, Middle East, Europe, most of them were put in camps in the sugarcane field. You lived ethnically. We went to school, we learned English. We went home, spoke our ethnic language, whether it was Hawaiian, whatever. So you didn't understand what the Portuguese were doing. Now, we go back to this instrument that's here. This is a machete de braga. It's not an ukulele. It looks like one, but it's got only 4 strings, 3 frets. Can anybody think of an instrument that we use in America? 4 strings, 3 frets. We'll go back to the East Coast, the Appalachian Mountain areas. We redesigned this instrument, called it dulcimer. 4 strings, 3 frets. Now we come to the West Coast. During the Vietnam War, the activists in San Francisco, they brought that dulcimer from the East Coast and made it popular in the West Coast, San Francisco, in the mid-1960s. The dulcimer. Now, at that time, my brother and I were in college. We bought one of those instruments to play music with, and we've made dulcimers here. But it's not an original instrument, it's a copy of the instrument from Europe. But that instrument was already in America before we even became part of the United States. But once we became part of the United States, guitar makers, Gibson, Martin, Harmony, they saw this little instrument come in, and they knew how to mass-produce guitars. Well, in no time, these guitar makers, plus all the ones that like Favela and Benson and Company, everybody was making ukuleles.